Dak Prescott knows exactly what the Cowboys cannot get away with to beat the Saints in week 2. We'll talk about it. What is up, everyone, and welcome into A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime. I am your host, Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central here on Dallas On Demand Sports Talk Network. Also catching up with you Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays with quick hitting videos. You have seen those across the channel over the last few days. Hope you enjoyed them. But welcome everyone into the show, man. Tonight we'll talk about the Cowboys going up against New Orleans, hosting the Saints for what will be, in my view, a pretty fun game for week 2. Honestly, I had a show about this yesterday when I talked about the Saints offense. It's actually a pretty cool watch, and I think they might make this a game. Honestly, at AT&T Stadium, the Cowboys will need to be at the top of their game. They'll need to avoid looking ahead against the Baltimore Ravens or anything like that, because they have a serious foe in store. And tonight we'll talk about some of the keys to the game and some of the big storylines to follow during it. And I'm going to start with what Dak Prescott had to say to the media today, because he talked about the fact that the Cowboys needed to do better on offense, right? I think that's the right kind of message to send to your team, because the Cowboys, sure, they got 33 points up on the board, and you might be, hey, what else do you want, Dak, right? But special teams played a role into that. They had that Kevontae Turpin touchdown. You had Eric Kendricks picking off Deshaun Watson. You had Trevon Diggs helping out in the takeaway department. So the Cowboys didn't put 33 points on the board just through their offense. And it was so not a perfect game for Dak Prescott's unit. And that is for a lot of reasons, but mostly, and this is what Dak Prescott talked about, they got to be better on third down. There's just no other way around it. And it just so happens that the Saints are a pretty good third down defense. And we'll talk about that. But here's the Dak Prescott quote that I'll get to you from A to Z Sports. Dak said, usually, that's when teams make that jump from week 1 to week 2. So Dak is not only knows and he's calling for improvement, but he knows there's some urgency to this, because it's only week 2, sure, but also, in his view, it's when teams make that jump. Understanding, said Dak Prescott, that we left a lot of meat out there on the bone versus the Browns. And you look at that game, and there, as we've said around here, it was a tale of two halves. First half started off slow on the first drive. After that, got it rolling, got some first downs, scored, got some points in the second half. We weren't able to convert on third down. That was a story for us. We were not able to put that team away when we had the chance. So Dak is just being super clear about this. And just in case you don't know the stat yet, the Cowboys went 0 for 5 on third down versus the Browns on Sunday. Now, again, kickoff, it is week 1 and everything. But this is an offense that ranked top 2 in the NFL last year in third down conversion percentage. The Cowboys were one of the best teams in the entire NFL in 2023 when it came to converting in the so-called money down. So how did the Cowboys go up against the Saints? How did they get better? Right? They were 4 for 14 last week, 0 for 5 in the second half. As I said, what went wrong versus the Browns that needs to go better against the Saints? And I will say, ironically, first and foremost, it doesn't have a lot to do with third down. I'll just say early down success, right? The Cowboys, maybe they dialed things a little bit back when they were up early versus Cleveland. The Cowboys need to treat the Saints differently. Obviously, the game script will be the game script once this thing actually kicks off. But I would like to see the Cowboys be aggressive right out of the gate and just throw in early downs, right? Obviously, you got to run as well, but be aggressive. Go back to your ways of doing things, pass-happy style, like you did in the second half of the 2023 season. I would like to see that personally. Dak Prescott talked about getting on the same page with CD Lamb, and maybe that just happens with another week of work, or having that first performance out of the way and just get those nerves out of them. Not nerves in the sense that, oh, it's an NFL game, I'm nervous. More in the sense that we have not seen each other for so long because CD was not around for training camp. That kind of way is what I mean. Now, I'll say this, though. One of the big stories for me going into this game will be pass pro. Because you know me, we talked about Tyler Guyton since last week after the game. And overall, the impression for Guyton was that, hey, he played a pretty decent game, right? Didn't break things. And even though he was facing Myles Garrett, the Cowboys looked efficient on offense, at least for one half. There were some good moments, some bad moments. Upon further review, though, it was a long game for Tyler Guyton when he was one-on-one versus Garrett. That's not a bad thing. Garrett is the Defensive Player of the Year. Guyton is a first-round rookie who we know is going to take some time to develop, even though we liked what we saw from him in camp and in the preseason. But when you look at the Cowboys' game plan, and I'm going to show you some clips here, Guyton was helped so much by McCarthy. You see a sprint out there, right? The Cowboys moving the pocket to the right, just getting away from Myles Garrett and asking Guyton to not even worry about number 95. We saw a lot of this for Dallas. We saw play action here where they send the running back straight into Myles Garrett. And in that case, for example, you saw a screen pass also thrown his way, just taking Myles Garrett completely out of the play. We saw this whole game. Keepers going away from Myles Garrett as well. So we saw play action. We saw moving the pocket. We saw screen. 4 out of 10 dropbacks for Dak were either screens or play action passes because the Cowboys were trying to find a way to help out Tyler Guyton. When it was one-on-one, though, you got this kind of stuff, right? Strip sack. And I'll tell you this, man. Tyler Guyton had the 4th worst grade from Pro Football Focus, pass blocking wise, out of 68 offensive tackles. One of the worst in pass pro in week 1. And I want to open up a parenthesis here, and I want to look at you in the eyes and be like, I'm not knocking Tyler Guyton. This is not a show where we're criticizing Guyton at all. It's just the reality of things. This is the game that the Cowboys wanted to play since they drafted him. They knew that it was going to be a long road when you were facing top-tier edge rushers in the NFL. Here's my big question, though, going into week 2 for Dallas. Because Mike McCarthy said we didn't have to adjust our game plan for Guyton, and that's a big compliment for the rookies. Maybe he wasn't lying. Maybe the Cowboys didn't adjust the game plan in-game, but they certainly had a game plan designed to help Guyton out. This wouldn't have been the game plan had you still have Tyron Smith. And I'm just using an example here. The Cowboys had a game plan to make up for the fact that they were going to have to start Guyton against Garrett. That is the reality of what we saw on Sunday. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, you could even say, good on Mike McCarthy for game planning this way and minimizing the impact that Garrett had on this game. But I also do wonder how much of that was the Garrett effect and how much are the Cowboys just going to help out Guyton as much as they can throughout the entire year, right? Even if it's not the Defensive Player of the Year on the other side of the line of scrimmage. That is something fair to wonder about, I think. The Saints, for example, do not have a Myles Garrett type player. They have Cam Jordan, who to me is still pretty good and still a very complete defensive end and perhaps up there with DeMarcus Lawrence among the underrated defensive ends of the NFL, but it's not Garrett. So what does the game plan look like against a non-Myles Garrett defense? Is Mike McCarthy still going to have to use so many keepers and so many sprint outs and so many empty formations where they had the tight end chip the defensive end on one side, a running back chipping another defensive end on the other side? And to what point is that going to hold back the Cowboys offense a little bit? That's a big question for me moving forward. It's not wrong if they continue to help Tyler Guyton, but it sure holds you back a little bit. And I think going up against the Saints will provide some early answers on that when we talk about the Cowboys having to be better third down offense-wise. Pass pro is a big part of the story, and I'm looking forward to seeing that against a much more manageable defensive line, even with Cam Jordan in there. And I think Jordan is going to be a fun matchup for Guyton if he's put on him all game long. We'll see, though. Also, on the third down offense department, before I go to the comments here, you might not have Jake Ferguson. In fact, I kind of don't expect Jake Ferguson to play. We won't see each other until Sunday, so this is the last time we talk about this, you and I. But Jake Ferguson did not practice on Thursday. He did not practice on Wednesday. He is dealing with a bone bruise, all right? I don't think that the Cowboys will want to make it worse. Forget about the fact that you should be able to beat the Saints without Ferguson. You just don't want to risk Ferguson long term because you're going to miss him for one game. But if he, for whatever reason, aggravates that injury, you're going to be in trouble for the entire year because Ferguson is a big loss on the playmaking department for the Cowboys offense. So I, for one, don't expect Ferguson to play. Of course, I don't know if he's gonna or not. It's just my expectation that he won't play after back-to-back missed practices. Cowboys on Friday, they don't do much in terms of pad work and contact and all that. It's more of a chill day for them, as Mike McCarthy has explained in the past. But how much does that affect you also in the passing game? Because I don't think we've seen enough from Jalen Tolbert as the number 3 wide receiver. Big game for him, by the way. But also, you have not seen a lot from your backup tight ends, if anything, right? Luke Schoonmaker has been an inconsistent pass catcher since last year. Hopefully, he has improved, but we can't tell because we have not really seen that. John Stephens Jr., who was expected to be tight end 3 and might still end up being that and might still end up battling Luke Schoonmaker for the backup job in Dallas, has not practiced also, didn't play last week, might not have played this week. And sure, I'm excited about Hunter Lipke being a versatile weapon and doing all that, but he hasn't really played as a tight end in Dallas since last year. So all I'm saying, man, third down offense is dealing with those issues. The best bet for the Cowboys is to just keep it pedal to the metal, early downs, throw that football around, and try to avoid the third and long situations in the first place. Before you even get into the conversation of how you're going to move the chains on third down, just avoid third down altogether. And I know that sounds easier said than done, but also it has to do with how you approach your offense, right? If you're running the football on 1st and 10 and 2nd and 7, you're not going to avoid those situations. But instead, if you're throwing it every time that you're on 2nd and 10 or most of the time, that is going to help you avoid them for sure. El Pipiri Pau, shout out to you, sir. He hits us with the super chat. Thank you for that. El Pipiri Pau says, do you still think that we had a better team last season? I need to see more. I'm just going to start there. I need to see more because it's been one game only. I think defensively, your scheme is witnessing an upgrade based on what we saw from Mike Zimmer. I feel much better about going against the Shanahan-style offense, which, by the way, this Sunday, you're facing a Shanahan-style offense. We had a video about that yesterday. But I just need to see more from Guyton, for example. I need to see more from Jalen Tolbert to know for sure. I need to see more, honestly. I know that's a kind of riding the fence a little bit with that answer. But I think on paper, on the roster, yes, I would still say yes. Because last year, you still had that future Hall of Famer left tackle. So I'm going to be patient, and I'm just going to be like, yeah. Now, linebackers, though, you drastically improved. Got to see more of Marshawn Neiland, right? Because we knew what the Cowboys had at defensive end in terms of depth last year. We still don't know about the Cowboys. Loved Neiland's debut, to be honest with you. But still, got to see more. Got to see more is the theme for that question, in my opinion. Shout out to everyone, by the way. Marcus says, Tua is struggling. Man, that pick, the second pick, was so ugly. The Bills are up 24-7. I got the Bills on a teaser plus 8.5. That's the only bet that I had for this one. But on my pick'em, I did get Dolphins in there. So we'll see if they turn things around. We'll see how that goes. Tommy says, you sound like a Cowboy hater. Nah, man, Tommy, not at all. This is not a cheerleader show, though, right? So I'm just here to... In fact, I'm going to tell you something, man. I like it when games are close, right? And I'm gonna be fair because you're not watching for me to be a cheerleader of the team. This is not the Cowboys, the ADC Sports official cheerleaders of the Cowboys. Not at all. I'm gonna give it to you straight, right? Now, I love the Cowboys, right? I've been watching the Cowboys my whole life. But when I'm in front of this mic, in front of this camera, my job is not to be a cheerleader of the team. And I'm telling you that I think that the Cowboys did an excellent job game planning against the Browns. But it's not going to be all A-pluses for the Cowboys going around here at primetime. It's just not the content you're going to get here. And that's fair if you don't like it. But me being objective about the team that you root for and I root for, it's not being a hater. Shout out to Marcus, though, for that support in the YouTube chat. Now, I will say, though, sometimes we will pick against the Cowboys here on the show because, again, that's the job. That's why I'm here. I'm not here to be the number one fan with the big foam hat. I had one of those. It got destroyed a while back, but I had one of those, and I loved it. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, moving on a little bit. Let's stop talking about the offense here. Let's go to the defensive side of things. Also had a show about this. I'm excited about this matchup. I'm going to start with some positive injury news out of Thursday. The Cowboys seem to be trending in the right direction with Marshawn Kneeland. That was an underrated injury on the report. I'm going to tell you that. He did not practice on Wednesday with a calf injury. Was limited on Thursday. Today, we'll see what happens tomorrow. But the fact that he got upgraded, to me, is huge. Because you might not perceive Kneeland as a starter, right? Guyton got the official start on the record book. Cooper Beebe the same. We also saw Kalen Carson get the start. Marshawn Kneeland didn't get it. However, he did play in almost 60% of the snaps. So Marshawn Kneeland is essentially a starter for the Cowboys. And the big reason why is because Micah is lining up everywhere. So the two guys that are always lining up a defensive end are Lawrence and it's Kneeland on the other side. Well, Parsons does his thing at the level that he does it, which is insane, moves around everywhere. If Kneeland was not able to go, maybe you would have been limited in what you do with Micah, because maybe you would want that help on the edge, especially because you're going up against a Saints team that is going to challenge you on the edges with so many wide zone runs, right? This is a Kyle Shanahan offense that we're talking about here. Clint Kubiak, the offensive coordinator for the Saints, was the passing game coordinator for the Niners last year. So this is what you're going to face. And I talked about this in a previous video. This is a big test for Mike Zimmer because of that. We talked about why the Cowboys could see an upgrade on defense going from Dan Quinn to Mike Zimmer. We talked about these kind of games. Dan Quinn versus this kind of offense struggled. It's just the truth. Now that you have Zimmer, you have so many more answers, though, because you can play the run with two safeties up high because you can defend the run from a light box because you've got Kendricks and you've got Overshown. You've got so many other answers to motion because you can be static on your pre-snap shells, right? You're always going to show. The Cowboys played a bunch of cover 3 in week 1, but they never showed cover 3 pre-snap, or they rarely did, right? There was a lot of these guys going on throughout the entire game. So that test is going to be super fun for me. I do think they move Micah around again. I'm not sure I would expect him to play linebacker off ball. I would expect it to be more of what we saw in week 1, where he's just moving around the offensive line, honestly. And especially after what we saw from Overshown and Kendricks. Those are the guys that I want playing this particular scheme, honestly, when the game kicks off on Sunday. I will say this, though. The scheme of the Saints is one that I was very surprised with when watching the film this week. Had a show about that. The Saints are doing a lot of creative stuff. They're using a lot of eye candy. They're flowing to the left when they're actually running to the right. Derek Carr had a fantastic throw under pressure, one of the best throws of the week. They have a very solid group of wide receivers. We'll talk about that as well. The one thing that I don't think they have is an offensive line that will hold up against the Cowboys. Talius Fuaga, the first-round rookie that the Saints are starting at left tackle, was surprisingly good in the running game. I think he had some rough moments in the passing game. And he's going up against Micah, right? We got to keep the same energy that we had for Guyton versus Garrett when we are discussing Fuaga versus Parsons, because that's what that is. That is a first-round rookie who wasn't like a top 5 pick or anything like that. First-round rookie that as a prospect was not refined as a pass blocker, and he's going up against one of the best defenders in the entire NFL, if not the best defender. He hasn't seen the speed that Micah will provide in this game. That's a mismatch. Add to that he is on the injury report with a back injury, was limited on Wednesday, got downgraded to a non-participant on Thursday. We'll see how Fuaga shows up for this game. He might not even play after he did not practice on Thursday. But let's assume for now that he will, because we don't know what's going to happen there with New Orleans. And if not, then it's going to be worse even. The Cowboys have a mismatch to exploit right there. And again, man, Fuaga was cool as a run blocker. I liked what I saw from him. As a pass blocker, though, I saw him allow defenders to get on his chest pretty often. And that's without even accounting for the speed that you're going to see from Mike on this game. And the Cowboys are still going to be able to exploit like that rookiness out of Fuaga when they show these weird looks and exotic looks that Mike Zimmer really likes to use. Now that I said exotic looks, I hate that I forgot to mention this when I was talking about the offense. The Saints held the Panthers 1 for 10 on third down in week 1, and they were the third best third down defense in 2023. And I remember this because Dennis Allen is also a fan of exotic looks, just like Mike Zimmer. So you'll see these defensive lines like the one that Mike Zimmer likes to set up with 2 mocked up linebackers with an overloaded side of the offensive line, right? He's been successful with that, had Bryce Young in trouble with some of those looks on Sunday. So it's something to keep in mind. That third down battle is going to be fun. Back to the defensive side of things, though. I think the Cowboys linebackers will be huge for this game. We saw Kendricks and Overshown show solid run defense assignments. They were very successful with this. It's going to be huge versus a Saints team that is going to do the white zone stuff against you with all of the eye candy. You're going to need fast reactions from Overshown. You're going to need the patience of Eric Kendricks showing up again on this game. And I'll tell you this, Kevin Stefanski used to like to run that kind of offense, but he's not doing it with Watson in the sense of personnel, because the Browns were playing a lot of 11 personnel. They did that last year as well. The Saints, though, are going to get on 21 personnel. They are going to use 13 personnel. They are going to go condensed. So this is a challenge that is important for us to see that the Cowboys can handle it. Because for all of the defensive success that the Cowboys had in week 1, they have not seen this. So this remains to be seen. I'm excited about that matchup. And I think that Kendricks and Overshown did enough for us to believe that they can handle this. Now, another important aspect of this matchup before we get into the predictions, and by the way, drop yours in the comments, drop your scoreboards. I already see some showing up on YouTube and on Facebook, so shout out to all of you. The Saints have Shaheed at wide receiver, who is underrated in my view, and Chris Olave, who remains maybe not in the top dog discussion of wide receivers, but he's somewhere along those top 15 conversations and stuff, right? Chris Olave is pretty good. He's been a victim of bad offenses, sure, but Chris Olave is pretty good. I'll tell you this. The fact that the Saints were able to do to the Panthers what they did, drop 47 points on them, without Derek Carr forcing the ball to Chris Olave, which is what happened, like Derek Carr was spreading the ball around, is a big testament to the fact that the Saints have a solid offense now. I'm going to give you the exact number. I think he had like 8% of the targets, something like that. Chris Olave was targeted 2 times. Shaheed was targeted 5 times. He had 3 catches for 73 yards. Moreau, the tight end, had 43 yards, 1 touchdown. Alvin Kamara had 5 catches. Johnson had 2 catches, right? So this is an offense that will spread the ball around. And I mentioned this because suddenly you're facing Shaheed and Olave, and there's going to be some pressure versus Kalen Carson again. And Kalen Carson exceeded our expectations in week 1. We should give him credit for that. You might argue that the Saints have a better wide receiver duo than the Browns do, just based on Jerry Jeudy, right? Amari Cooper is great, but Jerry Jeudy has been very inconsistent since arriving at the NFL. The thing is, though, the Browns, even though Carson delivered, the Browns went to Carson pretty often. And I think the Saints are going to do the same. I think the Saints are going to try to find a way to target Carson. So more challenges for the rookie. Should be up for the task once again, but he's still a matchup to watch. And they have some wide receivers to challenge him, for sure. And I do wonder if the condensed looks will put him more of on an island than in week 1, right? Because if it's a closer game and the Saints are going 21 personnel condensed, it's going to be tough to not get that extra safety in there, and thus leaving Carson a little bit by himself covering a wide receiver out wide. That is going to be a matchup to watch as well. I think the Saints are going to want to do a lot of that. I think the Saints are going to want to go condensed and try to attack that as much as possible. With all that being said, what do you think about this game? Gregory says Cowboys 36, Saints 24. David McKnight says 31-14. He's picking the Cowboys as well. Let's see here. What else? We had 34-24 from Ronnie. 38-21 from Katharina. Marcus goes 35-17 Cowboys. So we're saying some good predictions here. I'll tell you this. I'm going to go with the Cowboys on this game. I'm going to go with Dallas. I'm going to go with a closer scoreboard. But I am going over, right? So we do betting the Cowboys every single week here on Prime Time. I'm going to give you my pick, and then I'm going to give you my scoreboard. I'm going to go with the over 46.5 points, which is what the spread is right this moment. I'm going to go with the over for the game. I think the Saints will put some points on this board. I think the Saints have a legit offense, and I don't see them putting 47 up there like they did in week 1, but they're going to be decent. So I'm going to go Cowboys 27, Saints 21 for this ball game. I think the Cowboys will still be figuring out some stuff, both in the running game and the pass pro game, right, with Tyler Guyton. I think Dak and CD will still be working on that, getting that chemistry back. They should get it, right? They looked sharp early on in Cleveland, so it's just about finding that rhythm. But I think they might be forced to take it a little bit easy. And on the other side, I think the Saints find a way to attack those weak spots. I think they test the Cowboys' run defense. I think they test Kalen Carson just enough to make this a competitive game. So give me Dallas 27, New Orleans 21. I've got the Cowboys winning by 6, and I've got the over barely across the over. But yeah, I do got the over. Jeffrey says we will put more pressure on Carr than the Panthers did. That is absolutely correct. The Panthers were not getting to Bryce Young. That is not going to be the case on Sunday. I think that is the biggest mismatch, as I said earlier on. Like, just that personnel in the trenches. When the Cowboys are on defense, it's going to be ugly. It really is. Dominic says there's no way Guyton was that bad. He might be on the PFF portion of the show, which I would agree with. Like, 65 out of 68 is wild. But I think part of that grade is that there were not a lot of plays to really grade him on, and you're still grading him on reps against the DPOY. So I think Guyton is going to be much better week 2, but it's still going to be a challenge. 35-10 says Modelo Time. So there you go. We've got a blowout in the predictions, not the first one. So we'll see, ladies and gentlemen. But anyways, enjoy. Thank you. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of Thursday night football. And I'll see you on Sunday night to talk about the game. Not in the hypothetical world, in the what happened world. We'll break it down on Sunday. Thanks so much. Have a good one. Bye-bye.